Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Digital Twins webinar. We're just going to wait a moment until a few others join us. So we will just slowly begin the introductions, I guess. David, that sounds like a good idea, right? While people join, and we can tell you a little bit about who we are and what we're going to talk about today. So if I start, I can introduce myself. I'm Jane. I'm the Managing Director here at Humanate in Space Doctors in the UK. And I'm joined by David, as I said, who is a Senior Team Director and one of our AI pioneers. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be exploring the opportunity for AI in supporting decision making. We're going to be telling you a little bit more about what digital twins are, how they work, and our approach to using them, and some of our early use cases that we're able to share with you today. Throughout the session, feel free to share thoughts or reactions in the chat. You should all have a little chat button, hopefully on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And you can use that to put in thoughts or comments, or you can use it to ask questions. There is a Q&A tab, but feel free to put questions directly in the chat. We have Kat and Annalise, who you can't see at the moment, but they're with us today behind the scenes. Kat will be helping us on the practical side of things, and Annalise is our Global Chief Innovation Officer. And so Annalise knows more about digital twins than David and I put together. She's on holiday, lucky Annalise, but has very kindly joined us behind the scenes to help answer some of the more technical questions that you might have. So please make use of Annalise behind the scenes, and she will pop answers either into the chat function or the Q&A tab for you. In the Q&A function, you can upvote questions. So if there's questions popped in there that you think that's a really good one, then just help raise it to the top, and we will answer as many of those questions as we can live. And if we can't get them today, then we promise to follow up with you afterwards. And finally, don't forget to use your emojis. There's a little emoji button as well. You can react to things that you agree with. There we go. Someone's very kindly demonstrating how that works. You can react, you can agree, or simply show what's resonating as we go along. Now, before we kick off today, we thought we would start with a small part of our small piece of audience interaction, simply for us to get to know you a little bit better and understand how you are using AI, both yourself, but also within your businesses. So there should be a small poll appearing on your screen at any moment now. We're going to ask you two questions. The first question would be, how would you describe your organization's approach to AI today? There we go, it's popped up for me. So hopefully it has popped up for all of you. And if you want to take a second to start to vote on some of your thoughts there, then I'll give it a good 30 seconds or so we can start to see what's happening across your organizations. So there's a lot of experimentation in pockets across teams. For some, around about a third, it's being embedded in your workflows. And there's still, a fair number that are saying they're cautious and still exploring. That's excellent, because that helps us in what we're going to talk to you about today. And give us an idea of some of the things that we might want to focus on, or maybe follow up on in questions. And the next question then I would ask, so hopefully another little poll is going to pop up for you, is just how you're using AI in your day-to-day role. So if the first one was about your business, how are you using AI in your day-to-day role? We're keen to understand how you might be working with it day-to-day. Improving productivity, emails, it's good for that. I do that too. Supporting research design, yes, me too. I also use it to have a look at things like that. We do a lot of that at Humanate. Synthesize existing data and research, yes, and creating reports. So there's some nice themes coming through. And I think if a lot of us are using AI around the productivity space today, then I think our aim by the end of this session might be to help you understand how we can use it actually much more in understanding consumers and helping you make sort of faster and quicker decisions within your businesses. Okay, so what are we going to run through today? The plan is for me to build a little bit of context around some of the challenges that we think our twins might help you solve, and why human understanding that sits at the heart of our twins is really, really critical. And then what David's going to do is he's going to jump in and he's going to talk more about how the twins work, some applications of the twins, a little bit of a demo of how you might use them. And then he's going to talk about some use cases, so a case study or two, and some exciting future work that we're working on at the moment. But let me start with some of the broader challenges that hopefully will feel really familiar to you. They're around relevance, they're around the pace of change that we're all facing, they're around fickle consumers, because they're always fickle, aren't they, consumers? And a turbulent business environment, and the push that I think we all feel to use AI to solve these problems. So let me kick off with a little bit about this. So in our annual What Matters survey we did earlier this year, that was a global survey amongst 15,000 people across 15 markets, we saw almost 2/3 of consumers globally feeling that brands were interchangeable. So that's at the brand level. When we looked at that at the actual product and offer level, you can see that almost half of people globally say that everything from clothes they wear to the content they consume is starting to look the same. Now, that is part of a bigger consumer trend that we talk about as hyper blanding. So everything kind of begins to feel and look very, very similar. Styles, ideas, it might be the aesthetics, spread instantly and they get copied faster than ever before. So if you look at how this plays out in branding, on this side coming up, we've got a whole load of logos for different companies. Some of them we could play a game of can you guess, or how many do you actually know on this slide, because I've removed the names just to make it a little bit more challenging. When you start to remove those names, something really interesting happens, right? They all start to look very, very similar, even in terms of, not just in terms of the shapes, but in terms of the colors that are being used. We see a lot of circular shapes, central openings, soft organic curves. And it's not because somebody's looked, claws in the middle there, you can see the little splat in orange. It's not because they've looked and said, oh, I like that orange colour and I'm going to copy somebody else. It's generally because they're trying to communicate the same thing. That we're smart, we're modern, we're trustworthy. And the challenge is when everybody tries to communicate the same thing, as you can see here, brands begin to look remarkably alike. So it's a perfect illustration of how differentiation can slowly disappear. And for those of you that watched the World Cup recently, you might have noticed a trend going on there as well. We saw a similar pattern with the pink boots, right? If you did watch it, I watched it with my kids and they commented on it and said, why is everybody wearing pink boots? It's not because the brands set out to copy each other. Those boots were manufactured, they were bought, they were, tried and tested a long time before everybody arrived in the US or Canada or Mexico. But it was because the brands were all responding to the same signals. So pink offers very high visibility against grass, but on TV and on social media. But trend forecasting agencies had already identified electric pink or fuchsia as the major colour trends for 2026. So ironically, as every brand wanted to stand out, they all started to look exactly the same because you could not tell which brand was which I think in previous World Cups, brands had much more sort of identifiable signature boots. And the examples that I've just shown there aren't isolated. What used to be niche or local becomes mainstream very quickly and overnight, blurring into this global sameness. And the challenge we have is AI amplifies that, right? It draws from existing patterns, it reinforces sameness rather than originality. And this is because generative AI naturally gravitates towards what's already common or typical. That's what it's pulling in. And the distinctiveness of trends and ideas on the fringe that you can kind of see on the side here become blurred. So when AI is left on its own, what it will do is tend to reinforce the statistical middle rather than create something genuinely distinctive. And as we know, as insight and marketing professionals, the need for human and cultural understanding is constant. It's ongoing. I talked about fickle and changing consumers earlier. The world and consumers just don't stand still. So in our own work, we've seen large numbers of consumers saying that their priorities are changing as a result of everything that's going on in the world around them, which means for brands and for you, as brand owners or brand marketers or CMI experts, relevance is increasingly difficult to define. It's certainly something difficult that you can own and be yours forever. And it's something that you have to continuously earn and keep on top of. And that's where the tension really starts to appear. Because while consumers are evolving quickly, brands are struggling to keep up. Right, this is some data from Accenture, which tells us that 88% of business execs say that customers are changing faster than their organizations can adapt, which frankly, when you work in marketing and CMI, is kind of terrifying, because that's what people come to us for. So it's the paradox that we're facing, and something, as I said, we hear in conversations with lots of our clients, and I'm sure you read about pretty much everywhere when it comes to the world of marketing and consumer insight. So that need for deep consumer understanding balanced with speed to market. Now, you know the answer, don't you? Obviously, we all know the answer. The answer is AI. That's what, our businesses are telling us. That's what the media is telling us. That's what everyone is telling us. The answer to greater relevance and greater speed has got to be AI, right? But when thinking about how people want to interact with brands and products today and in the coming years, and that's our job, the real competitive advantage will not be having the smartest or most capable AI, right? That will eventually become sort of a hygiene factor, but it's really about knowing where people still matter most and how do you get the best from the human and the AI. So as AI becomes more commonplace and we start to use it in slightly different ways, we're seeing evidence that qualities such as judgment, empathy, creativity, accountability are becoming much more valuable, not less, to become the differentiator in that sea of automated sameness, that race to the middle that I talked about. So the future question for marketers, we think, will be less around, is it human versus AI, and more around what role should each play across different moments of customer consumer understanding and experience. So consumers are already increasingly comfortable using AI for guidance and everyday decisions. We saw that in our little poll at the beginning, so are you guys. But in moments that feel uncertain, emotional, perhaps more consequential, human capabilities and intuition are going to become much, much more important, precisely because everything else is automated. And that's no different for us as we sit at Humanate. It's no different, I guess, for you guys as you sit within your own organizations. We face those tensions every single day. So we're really clear at Humanate that we should be thinking about the challenge that we're facing today as this. As AI becomes more capable, which part of our work every day would benefit from greater automation, and which become increasingly meaningful when they remain distinctly human? And that's where digital twins comes in, because what it's doing is bringing us the best of both. And that's because our digital twins are based on real people. They're based on their real emotions and their real understanding. So it's moving you from decisions that might have to be made on gut feeling because you're under time pressure. It's moving you from generic AI outputs, so that messy middle. It's going to move you from waiting weeks for answers, because we know, right? I know as well, as everybody else do, that sometimes research can take a little bit longer than you might like. And it's moving you from snapshots and static insights. And what it's going to allow you to do is put people, real people, and real human understanding in every and any brand decision that you choose. Outputs that can set your brand apart. It will answer things in real time. David's going to show you some examples of this later on. And what it effectively will do is give you a living model of your consumer. So it's super exciting. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to David, who is going to tell you much more about how they work in practice. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Jane. So I'm going to talk about a way to address some of the challenges that Jane mentioned, and that is through human digital twins. So I'm going to tell you what they are, what they look like in practice, and some client case studies as well to add value and bring them to life for you. So we feel that digital twins are based on deep human understanding are the right starting point for the application of AI. Staying close to real people, but giving insight that's faster and more accessible across your business. So I'm conscious there are a lot of different terms used in the industry, but focusing first on our digital twins. So we are creating them at an individual level, representing one real consumer. So AI personas or AI avatars represent segments in a more aggregated and static way. So depending on your business need, there can be a role for personas and avatars, and we do build them for clients. But we believe the digital twin approach gives a more precise, flexible, and dynamic view of your customer base or market, and also a broader set of use cases. And I'll talk you through some of those later. But let's start with how we actually build the twins. So as I've said, the key to success is around that deep human understanding. And the starting point is your twin community. So how we actually build them, when we actually create them, we create an identity card, which is effectively a rich description mimicking how a real community member thinks and feels about a topic. It's got individual data, it's got a social dimension, and also contextual as well. And what you can also do is extend the memories of twins as well. So I'm going to talk about a project where we've done that, but the example, which is a great one, is where we've asked the individual to go in store, do in-store missions, and what we're then doing is transplanting the memory of those events onto our digital twin to give the lived real experience. I think the important thing to think about as well is that real people are messy, and twins look to capture that messiness at an individual level. They also need to be refreshed to stay relevant. So they are a snapshot. So as consumers change over time, your twins should too. And in terms of how often they should be refreshed, that really does depend on the category you're working in. So for some more static categories, it might change less frequently, maybe every 6 to 12 months. But if you're working in something like fashion, it might be that you'd want to refresh them almost monthly for something that's very fast moving as a category. So there are absolutely limitations to how we use AI. And one challenge is around trust and having confidence that what we're being told is accurate. So the way we've looked to address this is by creating a grounding score. So the grounding score is about how much what the twin has answered is based on primary and real research data. So effectively, there's 4 scores here, so this helps explain it. So this was a previous project about coffee. So the full fit scenario, 89%, illustrates that the question that we've asked the twin is very, very highly correlated with the primary research evidence that we've already uncovered at the initial stage. So presuming here we're talking about coffee, we've asked them something that we've already asked at the primary research stage. Because people aren't always consistent, this is about as high as we'll get because people will change their mind and give different answers. The bottom score, the unrelated 0%, is where there has been no primary data at all. So presuming we're asking about coffee and then we've gone and said, tell me about your pets, the unrelated score 0. We have no primary data on that. So the twin is going to fill in the blank based on its identity card. And we're going to get a fully synthetic answer, which is not based on any real research data or reports. So this is just about giving you the confidence that the twins are coming from primary data that is backed up and that you can trust. So the simple way of thinking about twins is bringing the best of both worlds. So it's deep and reliable proprietary human understanding combined with that ability to ask questions fast and reflect the speed of decision making in your business, giving you real-time simulations. And that allows you to build intelligence via your target or your current consumers. So how do they work? There are different ways to collect the primary data of your customers or target, but ideally the best way from our perspective is doing it via a community. So that's going to provide proprietary data that no public data set can replicate. And then the individuals that we've done that initial work with, we then create digital twin versions of that are going to then give you the speed to act before the moment passes. And along the way, all the time, you have consultants from Humanate who are helping design the right questions, interpret what the signals are saying, and turn that understanding into big ideas and bold strategies. So what I'm going to show you now is a demo using some dummy data about a coffee project. So we've created all the data just to give an example here. And this is an example of how digital twins look and feel. So we've used the coffee example to give you that real world context, but the use cases, as I'm sure you're about to see, will apply across sector and business challenge. So imagine you work for a coffee brand. This week, you've got to make several decisions, pack changes, campaign line, range call. And often, if you were going to research that, it would take weeks, or often no insights able to use is not being able to be used at all because time has not allowed it. And you're just making decisions more on gut and carrying on. So I'm just going to play the demo and illustrate what it looks like. So here we are with our live twins portal. We've got 24 UK coffee drinkers I can talk to at any time based on real human data. They're not personas or averages. Everyone is built from a real person's own words. It's their kitchen, their ritual, their last chop. It's real faces and real lives. And here we can just see what's going on in terms of their data, and we can just see a lot of depth where their sources are coming from. And that really does give you a sense of what's important to them in terms of coffee, what would make them switch, and we can go deep on any of them. So imagine ways we could use this. Imagine it's a Monday morning. I'm in a meeting with my team. We're in a discussion about the potential launch of a new coffee that's based on a specific occasion. And there's a bit of a split over whether people are willing to buy another type of coffee. So instead of guessing, we can ground our discussion in reality. And I can ask the twins what sort of coffee they're buying today and why. And so when I put that question in seconds, I've got a good sense of what coffee people are consuming, which brands they're using, the role of occasion, and understand the role that different formats are playing as well. So we can see there's disagreement, and then we can also see that the different segments have got different point of views as well. So we can cut it by that and see that there's actually differences among segment two. Okay, so presuming from that point, someone's actually said, well, I think that's fine for general coffee brands, but actually our brand is quite different. I don't think that applies. So we can go and check that assumption and actually see that because we can cut them any way we want to, we can go and actually say, look at our particular brand users, and then we can go and say, actually, our brand users are behaving in a very similar way. There's nothing unique about it. The other thing that's worth pointing out here as well is the grounding score that I referenced. So here, for this response, we've got 84%. So illustrating that the questions I'm asking, we have a very strong amount of primary data from the initial research we've done. So giving you a good sense here that that we've got a strong evidence base for the answers the twins are giving. Okay, so presume now we are all aligned and we want to explore opportunities and are looking at whether we've got a good response to a new idea that we're about to launch. So what we can do here is think about who our target is, target them specifically, look at which segment in particular, and then give them a real sort of range of questions to understand their response to the new concept that we're giving. So I've given you quite a brief run through just to give you a sense of how this might work. So you could do all of these processes in a quick meeting on a Monday and really help sort of settle some of the questions that you're being asked, but also as inspiration as well. So there's lots of different use cases, but just to give you a bit of a sense of how we could use them and how they could be a benefit to you. So just now going to talk you through a case study of a project that I did with Taylor's earlier in the year, and we presented at the MRS. So if you don't know, Taylor's is a global coffee brand based in the UK. And like many brands, they've got a familiar tension around the say-do gap and also around innovation and how people respond to new products as well. So this felt like a great opportunity to trial twins and understand if that would help our understanding of decision making, and also from a business point of view, allow marketing to move faster as well. So the challenge was around an upcoming new product launch where we felt there was going to be a say-do gap around behaviour, and could digital twins give a better answer than primary research alone. So the first thing that we did was run a pop-up community, and we ran this effectively as we would if we were just doing an online only, apart from we are adding extra depth around the individual, so we're able to run simulations at a later date as well. So from that, we were able to collect a very rich data set. We did install missions, diaries, discussions, recorded all sorts of different attitudes and behaviours to different ideas, particularly around new designs and packs and new products. And so what we were able to do is, once we'd collected that information, we created the twin community, which were, as mentioned, they were copies of our of all the members who'd taken part in that initial stage. And what we were able to then do is run a range of different simulations. So we're able to give an initial debrief, and then because we had the twin community, we were able to then answer further questions that marketing had. So we were able to go in deeper, so things like around changing packaging to a certain degree. What would happen if we added this to it? What would happen if we took off this logo? And Jack, who we worked with very closely, senior brand manager at Taylor's, he was able to go to our initial debrief, ask those questions, and then get answers to that later the same day. So instead of being completely reliant on your gut feeling and saying, well, I think if you did this, the impact would be X, we were able to actually stress test that with the twins. And it was really powerful for Jack to be able to actually use insight in the process when he wouldn't be able to. And the fact we were able to do that the same day of the debrief and carry on illustrating the value was really powerful for the marketing team. So twins, we don't feel are a magic wand. They're only as good as the people around them. So the first element is they're built on real human data. They're not static AI personas. They are stories, lived experiences people have shared with us. They're also expert shaped. So experts shape every twin. It's not just based on algorithms. They're curated and interpreted by human-age strategists in category, culture, and human behaviour. They're also distinctively yours. So they're a strategic asset. They're not a generic model. They're rooted in knowledge only you have, and it's tailored to your context and designed to grow over time as well. They're also decision orientated. Hopefully the examples I gave you earlier illustrated how we could use for twins in a very live environment and very fast paced, and also give real business value that could be embedded in your workflow. So using twins as a strategic companion. I'm going to highlight a few different ways we could use them, but the application of twins is really vast, and you can use it for other areas like closeness. There's a huge myriad of ways we could use twins. So initially, everyday decision making. So that was the type of examples I was giving you earlier. So explore questions, test ideas, and get a human perspective in real time on campaigns and messaging and concepts. Marketing outcome sprints as well. So combining the power of twins with creativity to help accelerate that insight to action, giving you more distinctive marketing outcomes as well in a much quicker speed. And then finally, the complex what-if scenarios. So simulating how consumers might respond when the world and culture around them changes as well. So I've got a case study here, which I'll talk you through, which is very much in this complex what-if scenario space. So this is a case study we're presenting at SMR at the beginning of September. And this is future digital twins and 5 future selves. So this is about how we can learn from twins and what they can inform us about future what if. So it's for a very large drinks brand. We can't say yet until the SMR study has actually and presentation has happened. But this was about tackling an innovation timing problem. So those of you linked to that world, I'm sure familiar with the challenges of trying to innovate for something years away down the line. So this was US, Germany, and Australia. And we projected the twins into 5 plausible 2030 future worlds. So what they did was help those innovation platforms optimize concepts for future market conditions. And it generated 2 to 3 times the amount of quality innovation directions than using more traditional methods. So this wasn't about predicting the future, but it was about giving the team a lot more confidence that the different directions that they could go in were really based on solid consumer insight, and also gave a dynamic framework that helped longer term innovation decisions. So I'm now going to hand back to Jane, who's going to give you some great examples about how we can bring that to life for your business too.
Okay, thank you, David, for taking us through a whistle-stop tour of the detail of the twins and how they work. Hopefully, you guys found that interesting and enlightening. The final case there that David obviously just mentioned is really exciting. We are presenting it at SMR. It's been nominated for 3 SMR awards, including breakthrough research methodology. So we are super proud of that work. So keep your eyes and ears open for more details than we could share today, because obviously we can't tell you everything about it. And do keep your fingers crossed for us. But hopefully throughout you'll have taken away how digital twins can help organizations keep learning. They can help you keep testing and applying real human understanding long after the original research might have finished. And just to be clear, one of the most important points that I think David made, he talks about it's not a magic wand. Our digital twins they're not a shortcut. You know, they are a companion to really strong research, not a substitute for it. They are genuinely at the point where we're bringing the best of human and AI together. So as I wrap up, and we've had questions, I think questions in the chat that Annalise is very helpfully answering, but as we wrap up, let's go back to where we began today, talking about relevance being so important as a competitive edge, and how twins can really enable a living model of your consumer. You know, David demonstrated that through a coffee example. There was a lot of coffee in the presentation today. How you could talk to those twins in real time. So they are a living model of your consumer, and they work at the level of individual people. As we said, they're not averages. We know that speed is incredibly important. You watched, as I said, how we can check assumptions in the time that a meeting takes. And as I said, it was coffee today, but hopefully you could see how that might work in your specific industry or sector, and an application there for your teams. I know for a fact that almost all of you will be constantly being asked to do more with what you already have. The value of twins is that you can do this, right? Without any fresh research or field work. And finally, you know, that worry that AI drags everything into the middle, the average, well, that's what the grounding score that David talked about exists for. It's really about helping you have that deep understanding at your fingertips. So how do you get started? Clearly, it's still early days for us, right? You know, we've shown you some examples of some pilot work we've done with Betty's and Taylor. We have got the piece that we're going to talk at SMAR. We have clients that are beginning to set up some digital twin pilots. But let me just talk you through really quickly how we have worked with them and how we're getting going on some of those projects. The important thing is start with the decision, not the technology. So it's not a case of like, oh, let's give digital twins a bash. I would say start with a decision or question you're being asked in your business today. Right? What is it that you're being asked that you think I either don't have the time, or it's something that, you know, people wanted yesterday that this actually might help me figure out. Bring your teams and your people with you, right? Again, you know, we talked about they're not a magic wand, they're not a shortcut. I think sometimes people can get a little bit overexcited, think they're going to give them the answer to everything. As David said, asking a digital twin that is based on a survey about coffee, about their pets, it's not going to work. So there is a level of education that's really important. Twins are, they're a capability for your team. They're not a tool just to be unleashed and used by anyone. That's a really important distinction. Put the guardrails in place from day one. I think every business nowadays has an AI charter. We have to think about consent. We have to think about data security. So a big part in setting up the twins is ensuring that we have all of that in place, and that the real humans behind the twins are aware of what their data might be used for. So trust is the foundation here, and that's really obviously very, very important within consumer insight and research. And then really, you know, it's about having some fun, right? Learning by doing. We can build rough twins from data that you already own. You can do a small pilot to bring fresh data, or you can put your existing community to more work. So there's different ways that we can approach it. And we can test and learn. And then the final one is really about thinking about building to last. You know, this is this sort of longer term piece of refreshable twins. David talked about that. You can augment them, you can add to them, you can build those twins inside your workflows. If you know that you have a project, a big strategic project that's going to run for months, possibly longer, depending on your category, you can build those twins into those workflows so that you head towards a really living simulation of your market. The first question I would say to ask yourself is, where do you need some really deep human understanding, and you need it quickly? We can then help you move on from there with the discussions on who they are, the audience, and the value that the twins can bring. So do come and talk to either David or to me. You can talk to your account leads about a potential pilot within your business. If we're not already talking to you about that, that is. If you have a community with us, it's relatively simple. If you don't, then let's talk about an issue and some primary research either that we could do or that you might already have. I think Annalise has talked about some of this in the chat, and we'll jump over and have a look at some of those questions as we finish up. But I guess my plea to you would be to say, let's test and learn on this together, and really help scale this throughout your teams and the business to deliver some genuine transformation. So as you head away from the session, and please do keep putting questions in the chat, by the way, we're not finished quite yet. Do think about a decision you're grappling with. That could be an extension of a strategic project, or it could be about augmenting an existing community or piece of research to test and learn. And as I said, our ambition is to really embed twins and twin communities across your workflows for your teams, to help you make sort of decisions and moments, and deliver that consumer closeness at scale. So we would love to hear your thoughts and talk more. I'm going to jump over and have a look at the questions and see if there's any that Annalise has not answered already. But as always, we would love your feedback on the session today. There's just 3 short questions for you to complete. We will not create digital twins out of you all, I promise. And you can do so by scanning the QR code that hopefully you can all see on the screen, or following the link. There should be a little pop-up for you in the bottom left-hand corner. And as I said, if something really resonated, or there's an area where you think twins actually might just be the perfect answer, then do let us know. And then I'm going to jump on and have a look at some of the questions. And as I said, feel free to keep popping some in the chat. Annalise, have you answered all of them? Kat, I don't know if you can tell us. I'll run through a few just in case there's any that people didn't spot. Grounding scores vary by question. Yes, they do vary by question. They run on a simulation question level. Is it something that has to be delivered off the back of some primary research completed by Humanate? It can be, but equally we have set up twins outside of primary research that we've done ourselves. So actually it doesn't need to be our own research. What we need is something to start with. That's the important piece, is that we have the humans, the individual humans within your category that we're able then to build the twins from. Annalise talked a little bit about the model that sits behind it. The larger LLMs support, but the twin augments the prompts shown based on the questions that obviously we have asked them and that they have answered. And that wouldn't actually be distinctive from what you will get in an LLM. David's study that he referenced is going to be super interesting on this. So again, there's a plea there to watch out for that. I think SMR is in September. David, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, early September. Yeah.
It is. Okay. There we go. Let me see, was there anything else? Annalise answered one that was in the Q&A around the social dimension. And does it include inferred sensitive characteristics? We're always looking at the category and the business decisions. So we stay away from anything that would be super sensitive information. And as Annalise said, we have to comply with GDPR and privacy. But we can share more on that if people are interested. Any other questions? No? If you don't, then feel free, if you think of something after we finish up, to send a message to either David or I. Kat has put the lovely contact us email address there in the chat. You can reach one of us through that, or we are just Jane B or David W. wearehumanate.com. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you found that interesting, thought-provoking, and it might make you want to go away and build your own twins. Do let us know, and we look forward to talking more about this over the coming weeks and months ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.